AITA for bringing receipts when my parents claimed the grandson they once rejected? I'm Elizabeth, 36, and for 19 years, the one constant in my life has been Ethan calling from the kitchen asking if the orange juice is his or if I'm saving it for something. He's my son, the kid I raised from a newborn who fit in the crook of one arm to a 19-year-old who now has opinions about coffee, laundry, and whether I overcook pasta. My parents, Margaret and Richard, were not part of that life. Not birthdays. Not school concerts. Not senior night. Not even a 5-minute phone call when he was sick with a fever and I was too scared to sleep. Ethan knows me as the mom who saves receipts, overpacks snacks, and cries quietly at every graduation song. He never knew me as the daughter begging to be let back in. I never planned to expose my parents in front of half the family. I didn't have some long revenge fantasy tucked away in a drawer. What I had was a manila folder full of the truth, because people had spent years telling me things probably hadn't been as bad as I remembered. They were worse. When I was 16, I told my parents I was pregnant with a positive test stuffed in the zippered pocket of my hoodie, because my hands were shaking too hard to hold it. My mother didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask if I was scared. Margaret paced the living room like I had spilled red wine on her carpet instead of told her I was carrying a baby. People are going to talk, she said. That was her first concern. People. The neighbors. Church ladies. Cousins. Anyone who might think less of her. My father sat in his recliner with the TV muted, staring at the carpet. Richard was always quiet when he wanted to pretend silence made him innocent. I said, I don't know what to do. My mother stopped pacing and looked at me like I was something she had found under the sink. You know exactly what to do, she said. You fix the problem. I understood what she meant, but I asked anyway. And if I don't? She crossed her arms. Then you are choosing not to live under this roof. I looked at my father. I still remember that moment because I honestly believed he would stand up. Not even defend me exactly. Just say, Margaret, calm down. Or, she's our daughter. Or anything that proved I still belonged there. Instead, he rubbed his forehead and said, Don't make your mother say it again. That was the night I learned that a quiet parent can still hand you the knife. I chose Ethan. I left with a backpack, a few clothes, my school ID, and a phone with a cracked corner that only charged if the cord bent a certain way. My mother wouldn't look at my stomach. My father stood near the front door like his job was to make sure I didn't change my mind and walk back upstairs. 2 days later, he left a voicemail. I kept it because I was scared I would start believing their version someday. His voice was flat, tired, almost bored. Elizabeth, do not come back here with that baby and expect us to pretend this is normal. Your mother and I are done discussing it. That was it. No, are you safe? No, where are you staying? No, we're angry but we love you. Just a warning not to bring my son home before he had even taken his first breath. Ethan was born small and furious, with a cry that sounded like he had personal complaints against the hospital lighting. I had hospital bills I didn't understand, formula coupons folded into my wallet, and a second-hand baby blanket with a tiny yellow duck in one corner. I was terrified every day, but I was never unsure about him. His first birthday was a grocery store cupcake with one candle I had to relight 2 times because he kept clapping at the flame. I took the picture with a timer on my phone so the photo is crooked and my face is half out of frame. His 5th birthday had paper plates with dinosaurs because that was what was on clearance. At his school's grandparents' day, he came home holding a construction paper family tree and asked, Do I have grandparents? I sat at the kitchen table and tried not to let my face change. You do, I said carefully, but they don't know how to love us the way we deserve. He looked down at the paper. Did they not like me? I reached across the table and touched his little hand. No, baby. None of that is your fault. That was the version I gave him for years. Softer. Safer. I never told him that my mother had treated him like a stain on the family name. I never told him that my father had warned me not to come home with that baby. I thought I was protecting him from feeling unwanted by people who were supposed to love him. Maybe I was also protecting myself from saying it out loud. Over the years I kept records. Hospital paperwork. School forms where grandparent emergency contact was left blank. Old bills. Printed texts. The voicemail saved as an audio file with a boring name because I was afraid to delete it and afraid to see it. I kept the notarized statement my father signed when I was 17, saying he and my mother would not provide financial support for me or my child. It wasn't a revenge file at first. It was proof I wasn't crazy. My parents' version of the story changed depending on who was listening. When I was younger, I was difficult. Then I was dramatic. Later I was private. By the time Ethan was in high school, my mother had started saying, "Elizabeth made choices and we respected her distance." That one almost made me laugh. They respected my distance so hard they created it, locked it, and then blamed me for the locked door. For most of Ethan's childhood, they left us alone. They never asked for school pictures. Never mailed birthday cards. Never called when he got the flu so badly I slept sitting up beside him because I was afraid his fever would spike. They were just a blank space I had learned to stop touching. Then Ethan graduated. I posted one photo. Just one. Ethan in his cap and gown, standing in the kitchen because he had refused to pose outside until after he ate something. There was a laundry basket in the corner, and a magnet on the fridge holding up an old grocery list. It wasn't fancy, but he looked happy and handsome and so grown that my throat hurt. The family group chat lit up with heart emojis. Cousins sent congratulations. Rebecca, my younger sister, wrote, "So proud of him," with 3 crying faces. Then my mother commented publicly under the photo, "Grandma loves you more than you know." I stared at it for a long time. Ethan saw it before I could decide whether to delete it. He leaned over my shoulder, read the comment and said, "Do I have to respond to that?" "No," I said. "You don't have to do anything." He made a face. "That's weird, right?" "It's weird." 10 minutes later, Margaret texted me, "It is time you stop punishing us and let us meet our grandson." I didn't answer right away. I set the phone down, washed the same coffee mug 2 times, and reminded myself that immediate anger had never helped me with her. Margaret loved making me look hysterical. She would poke and poke, then gasp when I reacted. Richard followed with a shorter text. "Your mother has suffered enough." There it was. Not "we're sorry." Not "can we talk." Not "we hurt you." Just a demand wrapped in pity for themselves. I replied later that night, "You can have a conversation with Ethan after you acknowledge what happened, and stop calling yourself his grandmother online. No public claims, no surprise visits, and no private contact with him until then." My mother wrote back almost instantly, "You are still bitter after all these years. Family is family." I didn't answer. That should have been the end of it, but Margaret had never met a boundary she didn't treat like a personal attack. A week later, a graduation card arrived for Ethan. It was one of those shiny cards with a gold tassel on the front. Inside was a check and a note written in my mother's careful cursive. "To our beloved grandson, we have waited 19 years to celebrate you. Love, Grandma and Grandpa." Ethan held the check by the corner like it might leak. "What do I do with this?" he asked. "That's up to you. What would you do?" "I would not cash a check from people who won't tell the truth about why they're strangers." He nodded and slid it back into the envelope. Then came the watch. Rebecca called me sounding uncomfortable. Mom asked me to make sure Ethan knows the watch is from them. "What watch?" She said she mailed him one. "Expensive, I think." "Rebecca." I closed my eyes. "Tell Mom to stop sending things." Rebecca sighed. "She says you're making her beg." "I'm asking her to apologize." "I know." Her voice got smaller. "I'm just telling you what she said." The watch arrived 2 days later. Ethan didn't open it. He put the box on the dining table and said, "I don't like how this feels." Neither did I. By then, Margaret had moved from comments to performance. She posted an old baby photo of Ethan that I didn't know she had. He was maybe 3 months old, asleep in a striped onesie. I have no idea where she got it. Maybe I had sent it to Rebecca years ago. Maybe someone else had passed it along. The caption said, "The years stolen from us can never be replaced." That was when the family started turning. One cousin messaged me, "I know there's pain, but people change." An in-law wrote in the group chat, "I just want healing for everyone." Another relative sent Ethan a private message saying, "Your mom may be hurt, but don't let her make this decision for you." Ethan showed me that one. His jaw was tight. Do they think I don't have my own brain? He asked. They think if they pressure you enough, I'll look controlling no matter what I do. He looked at his phone again, then deleted the message. I don't want to be their family project. I told myself to stay calm. I had been quiet for 19 years. Surely I could stay quiet a little longer. The truth didn't need an audience. Then Margaret made sure it had one. She wrote in the family group chat, "Please pray for us. We are trying to rebuild what was taken from us." People responded with hearts, praying hands. Love you, Aunt Margaret. God restores. Don't give up. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone in my hand while Ethan made toast behind me. The smell of burnt bread filled the room because he still pretended he liked it dark when really he always forgot to turn the toaster down. You okay? He asked. No, I said honestly. But I'm not going to make this your problem. He came around the table and looked at the screen. His face changed. Mom, he said, quiet but firm. It becomes my problem when they're using me to make you look cruel. I didn't know what to say to that. 2 days later, Rebecca called me. Not texted. Called. Rebecca hates calls, so I knew something was wrong. She didn't even say hello properly. Did Aunt Helen's gifts really never get to you? I was folding towels on the couch. One slipped off my lap. What gifts? Rebecca went silent for a second. Mom always said you sent everything back. Rebecca, I never received anything to send back. She said Aunt Helen sent money when Ethan was born. Baby clothes, gift cards, letters. Mom said you refused all of it and told her to tell everyone to leave you alone. My mouth went dry. No, I said. That never happened. Rebecca's breathing changed on the other end of the line. I need to ask Aunt Helen something, she said. Rebecca, what exactly did Mom tell you? That you didn't want help. That you said if people couldn't support your choices, you didn't want their charity. I was 15, Liz. I believed her. I sat there after the call ended with the towels half folded and the TV murmuring to an empty room. For 19 years I had believed most of the family simply chose not to care. It hurt, but at least it was simple. Now I wondered if help had come close enough to touch me and been pulled away. I called Aunt Helen that evening. She is my father's older cousin, the kind of older relative who sends cards with underlined sentences and still keeps phone numbers in an actual address book. We had never been close, but she had always been kinder than most. When I asked about the gifts, she went quiet in a way that scared me. Honey, she said finally, you didn't get them? No. None of them. No. She made a small sound, almost like she had been hit. Margaret told me direct contact would upset you. She said you were too emotional and that she would make sure everything reached you. My hand tightened around the phone. What everything? Money orders. 2 checks. Grocery gift cards. Baby blankets. Some clothes. Letters. Her voice shook. I thought you wanted nothing to do with me because you never answered. I never knew. Aunt Helen said she would look through her files. I expected maybe one receipt, maybe a vague memory. Instead, by the next afternoon she had copies. Money order stubs. Check images. A note from her address book that said, gave to Margaret for Liz and baby. Dates. Amounts. Enough to make my stomach turn. One check had been endorsed and deposited into an account connected to my parents. I stared at the image until the numbers blurred. It wasn't a fortune. That almost made it worse. It was grocery money. Formula money. A few $100s at a time that would have meant the world when I was counting coins in the checkout line and pretending I wasn't worried my card would decline. Aunt Helen cried when she realized what had happened. I trusted her, she said. I thought I was keeping peace. She used peace as a place to hide things, I said. The baby items came up because Rebecca, shaken by our call, started looking through old storage boxes in my parents' garage, while she was there helping them clear space for some new shelving. She found a taped box pushed behind Christmas decorations. Inside were baby blankets, a few tiny outfits with tags still on, and a faded envelope with Aunt Helen's handwriting. Rebecca sent me a photo. My whole body went cold. Then she sent another one. It was a photo album, the kind with plastic sleeves that stick to the pages. Behind old holiday pictures, Rebecca found an envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter I had written when Ethan was almost 2. I had forgotten about it until I saw the first line. Mom, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to see him. I remembered writing it at a cheap little table while Ethan slept in the next room. I remembered crossing out sentences because I didn't want to sound angry. I didn't ask for money. I didn't insult her. I didn't blame her. I said Ethan liked bananas, hated socks, and had started saying moon every time he saw a light in the ceiling. I asked if she and Dad would meet him once. She never answered. For years, I told myself that silence was her answer. Now I knew she had buried the question. Rebecca texted me later that night. I don't know what to say. I believed what I was told. That doesn't excuse it. I replied, no, it doesn't. That was all I had in me. Part of me wanted to call Margaret and scream until my throat hurt. Part of me wanted to post everything online and tag every relative who had ever told me to be the bigger person. I'm not proud of how much I wanted to hurt them back. But I am proud that I used the truth instead of cruelty. I started building the folder. A real one. Not just screenshots on my phone that Margaret could dismiss as edited or out of context. A manila folder with tabs, printed pages, dates, and copies. I labeled it the 19 years they left out. I included my mother's old handwritten note telling me I could not stay if I kept the pregnancy. Richard's voicemail transcript with the audio saved on my phone. The notarized statement refusing support. Hospital billing records. School emergency forms. Birthday photos where there were no grandparents in the frame. Just me lighting candles and running back before the timer went off. Screenshots of Margaret's recent "Grandma loves you" comments. The group chat messages where she claimed something had been taken from her. Aunt Helen's receipts. The endorsed check. Photos of the sealed baby box. My toddler-era letter asking them to meet Ethan. No insults. No dramatic captions. No exaggeration. Just dates and proof. Before I did anything with it, I told Ethan. That was the hardest part. We sat at the kitchen table after dinner. He had a glass of orange juice in front of him even though he drinks coffee now and pretends orange juice is for kids. The folder sat between us like a third person. I need to tell you more than I told you before, I said. He didn't touch the folder. About them? Yes. Is it worse than what I guessed? I swallowed. Probably. I told him about the ultimatum. The night I left. The voicemail. The help that Aunt Helen sent and I never received. The letter I wrote when he was little. He listened without interrupting. That was worse than if he had yelled. He just sat there, eyes on the folder, fingers curled around his glass. Finally, he said, "You let me think it was complicated." I know. It wasn't complicated. No. His eyes shone, but he didn't cry. You were trying to protect me. I was. But I also think I was protecting myself. I didn't want to say out loud that they rejected you before they knew you. He pushed the glass away. I don't want you to hide the ugly parts to protect me anymore, he said. I'm old enough. I won't make you hate them, I told him. But I won't let them love bomb you with lies either. You get to decide what kind of relationship you want, if any. You deserve to know what they are asking you to forgive. He pulled the folder closer. Then I want to know what they keep leaving out. He read for almost an hour. The only time he asked me to stop was when I played a few seconds of Richard's voicemail. My father's voice filled the kitchen, cold and familiar. Do not come back here with that baby. Ethan lifted one hand. Stop. I stopped it. He stared at the table. That baby, he said. I wanted to reach for him, but I waited. He looked up at me. I was that baby. I nodded because lying would have insulted him. He breathed out through his nose. Okay. Okay. I mean, not okay, but okay. I know now. The graduation dinner was supposed to be simple. Grocery store cake, foil trays of food, plastic cups, folded chairs, and a stack of cards on the side table. Ethan wanted low-key. He specifically said, "No speeches, Mom. I'm serious." I invited a few relatives who had stayed mostly neutral, plus Rebecca and Aunt Helen. I did not invite my parents. Margaret and Richard came anyway. They walked in right as Ethan was laughing with one of his cousins near the cake. Margaret had curled her hair, and wore the kind of soft cardigan she always put on when she wanted to look harmless. Richard stood behind her, hands in his pockets, already wearing his "I don't want trouble" face. Margaret saw Ethan and pressed a hand to her chest. "My miracle grandson," she said. The room went awkwardly quiet. Ethan stiffened as she rushed toward him. She grabbed him before he could step away and held on too tightly. "I waited 19 years to hold my grandson," she said loudly. Ethan gently removed her arms. "You don't know me." Her face flickered, but only for a second. Then the tears started. "Oh," she said, turning slightly so everyone could see her. "This is what I mean. We lost 19 years with our grandson because Elizabeth couldn't forgive." Richard sighed behind her like a tired man in a tragedy he had not helped write. "We tried everything," he said. "She shut us out." There it was. In front of my son. In front of the cousins. In front of Aunt Helen, who went very still near the side table. A relative I barely talked to looked at me and said, "Elizabeth, isn't this a little cruel? It was a long time ago." My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. I picked up the manila folder from the chair where I had left it. I hadn't wanted to use it. I had brought it because I knew my mother. I placed it on the table beside the graduation cards. "You all heard the version that made them look abandoned," I said. "Now you're going to hear the version that left me outside with a backpack and a positive test." Margaret's tears stopped like someone had turned off a faucet. "Don't do this here," Richard said. I looked at him. "You did it here. I'm answering it here." Margaret's mouth tightened. "You want to humiliate me at your son's dinner?" "You humiliated me with a lie," I said. "I'm answering with the truth." No one moved. I opened the folder. I started with the note from my mother. I didn't read the whole thing, just enough. "If you choose this pregnancy, you are choosing not to live in our home." Margaret said. "That was taken out of context." I looked at her. "Name the context that makes that sentence different." She didn't. I showed the notarized statement Richard had signed refusing financial support. Richard rubbed the back of his neck. "It was a hard time." "For me," I said. "For me and the baby you told me not to bring home." He flinched. I played 10 seconds of the voicemail. Just 10. Enough for his own voice to say, "Do not come back here with that baby," before I stopped it. The room was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and someone shifting in a folding chair. Ethan stood beside me, not behind me. That mattered. Margaret tried to recover. I was a mother in pain. People wouldn't understand what we were going through. Aunt Helen stepped forward. Her voice was older, thinner than mine, but it cut through the room. "Margaret, did you keep the money I sent for Elizabeth and the baby?" Margaret turned pale. "This is not the time," she said. Ethan looked at her. "It became the time when you lied about my mom in front of me." Aunt Helen held up a copy of one of the checks. Her hand trembled. "I gave you that money because you told me it would reach her. Did it?" Margaret opened her mouth, closed it, then looked at Richard. Richard said, "It was complicated." Aunt Helen's face hardened. "No, it was a check." One of my cousins whispered, "Oh my God." I showed the money order stubs, the address book note, the endorsed check, the photo Rebecca had sent of the unopened baby clothes in the garage. Then I took out my own letter, the one from when Ethan was a toddler. My voice almost broke, but I kept it steady. I wrote this asking them to meet him, not asking for money, not asking for forgiveness, just asking them to see him. I read the line. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to see him." Rebecca started crying quietly near the doorway. Margaret whispered, "You were trying to punish us." I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because the alternative was screaming. "I was 19, I said. I was tired, broke, and raising a toddler. I was asking my mother to meet her grandson." Richard tried again. "Your mother was upset. I didn't know what else to do." Ethan turned to him. "Then why are you still lying about it?" Richard looked at my son like he had forgotten Ethan was more than a prop in their performance. Ethan's voice stayed low, but everyone heard him. "You don't know what I needed. You weren't there. Grandpa is not a title you claim because it looks good in photos." Margaret put a hand to her chest again. But this time no one rushed to comfort her. "You're letting her poison you," she said to Ethan. He shook his head. "No. She kept the worst parts from me for years so I wouldn't feel unwanted. You're the ones who made the worst parts true." My mother looked around the room, searching for the old audience. The one that softened when she cried. The one that filled silence with excuses for her. This time people looked away. Aunt Helen took the copies back from the table and said, "I will be calling my attorney Monday. You will not be handling anything for me. Not my paperwork, not my accounts, not my estate. I trusted you once." "Helen," Richard said, "let's not overreact." She stared at him. "Richard, you signed papers abandoning a pregnant child and then stood behind your wife while she stole the story. Do not speak to me about overreacting." The dinner didn't explode the way dramatic stories usually do. Nobody threw cake. Nobody slapped anyone. It was worse than that for Margaret. People went quiet. They read. They asked small, uncomfortable questions she couldn't answer. "When did you try to call Elizabeth? Why didn't you send things directly? Why did you say she returned everything? Did you ever apologize?" Margaret kept saying, "Family shouldn't keep score," until Rebecca finally said, "This isn't scorekeeping. It's a timeline." That was when my mother grabbed her purse and said she couldn't stay somewhere she was being attacked. Richard followed her because that was what Richard did. He followed the loudest person and called it peace. At the door he turned back to me. "You didn't have to do it like this." I said, "You don't get to skip the part where you told me not to come home." He had no answer. After they left, the room stayed frozen for a minute. Then Ethan picked up a plastic knife, cut himself a piece of graduation cake and said, "I still don't want speeches." A few people laughed because nobody knew what else to do. The laugh broke the tension enough for people to breathe again. I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. I felt like someone had opened a window in a room where I had been holding my breath for 19 years. The fallout started before the night was even over. The family group chat, which had been full of prayers and heart emojis, became a mess of deleted messages and awkward pauses. One cousin wrote, "I didn't know." Another wrote, "This should have been handled privately," which told me they cared more about discomfort than truth. Rebecca texted me after she left. "I don't expect forgiveness today. I just need you to know I believe you. I should have asked sooner." I stared at the message for a while before replying. "Thank you for saying that." That was all I could offer her then. Aunt Helen called me the next morning. She sounded tired but clear. "I changed my executor paperwork," she said. "Margaret is out. You don't have to do anything for me," I told her. "I'm not doing it for you to chase money," she said. "I'm doing it because I gave someone authority and she abused it. Anything I intended to leave through Margaret will go directly where I want it to go now. To you and Ethan." I cried after that call. Not because of money. Because someone had finally looked at what happened and changed their behavior instead of asking me to change my feelings. Margaret tried to recover online. For about 12 hours, she left her comments up under Ethan's graduation photos. Then people started replying. "Did you ever apologize? Why did you say Elizabeth refused help? Is this before or after you kept Helen's money?" She deleted every comment by dinner. Then she texted me, "I hope you are proud of yourself. You destroyed this family." I replied, "No. I stopped helping you lie about it." Richard called once. I let it go to voicemail. His message was exactly what I expected. "Elizabeth, your mother is devastated. I admit mistakes were made, but you have to understand we didn't know what else to do back then." I didn't call him back. I sent one text. "Name the mistakes. Say what you did. Say what you did to fix it. Until then, do not contact Ethan." He didn't answer. 3 days later, I sent a boundary email. Plain. No threats. No dramatic language. Nothing my mother could screenshot and use to make me look unstable. I wrote that they were not to contact Ethan privately, send gifts, post about him, call themselves his grandparents publicly, or show up at events. If they wanted any relationship with him in the future, they needed to acknowledge to the same family they had lied to, that they kicked me out, refused support, blocked help from Aunt Helen, hid my letter, and falsely claimed I kept Ethan from them. Then they needed to apologize directly without blaming my age, my attitude, their embarrassment, or a hard time. Margaret responded with one sentence. I am sorry you feel this way. I didn't respond. Ethan read the email before I sent it because I wanted him to know the boundary involved him, not own him. After he finished, he nodded. That's fair, he said. You can choose something different later, I told him. If you ever want contact, I won't stop you from making your own decision. He leaned back in his chair. Maybe someday. Not now. Then he added, and not if they keep calling you bitter. That night, he blocked 2 relatives who kept messaging him about reconciliation. One had written, "Don't let your mom's pain become yours." Ethan showed it to me before blocking them. My pain is mine, he said. They don't get to assign it. He is still 19. He still forgets wet towels in the washer. He still eats cereal standing up and asks if I'm saving the orange juice for something. He is not some perfect wise adult who processed this overnight. A few days after the dinner, I found him sitting on the floor by the couch with the old birthday photos spread out in front of him. The crooked cupcake one. The dinosaur plates. The school concert where he had a paper star pinned to his shirt. I didn't know it was just you and so many of these, he said. I sat beside him. I tried to make it feel like enough. He looked at me like I had said something strange. It was enough, Mom. That nearly broke me more than the confrontation did. I spent years thinking maybe if I became the kind of mother nobody could criticize, my parents would come back and admit they were wrong. I thought if Ethan was kind enough, smart enough, loved enough, they would finally see that he had never been the disaster they predicted. But they didn't come back because they were sorry. They came back because he was grown, polite, handsome in a graduation cap, and easy to brag about. They came back when he no longer needed diapers, school supplies, emergency contacts, fever medicine, rides, or anyone to sit up at night counting his breaths. They came back when being his grandparents looked good. They wanted the photo, not the history. I don't know if Margaret and Richard will ever give a real apology. I'm not waiting for one anymore. Some relatives believe me now. Some are embarrassed. Some still think I should have protected everyone from the truth because the truth made dinner uncomfortable. I can live with that. What I can't live with is letting my son be used as a trophy by the same people who once treated him like a problem to erase. So my parents lost the thing they wanted most, control of the story. They lost the easy sympathy. They lost the right to cry in public and have everyone call it proof. They lost access to Ethan unless they can walk through the truth without demanding we sweep the broken glass out of their way first. And I gained something I didn't realize I still needed. Not approval. Not revenge. Not a perfect family ending. Just the quiet relief of no longer protecting their reputation at the cost of my own peace. I didn't keep my son from his grandparents. I kept him from the same door that closed on me. If you liked it, don't forget to